In this video, I'm going to share the top 5 habits that all successful dieters have. And this here is based on actual evidence, not only from myself personally, but working with over 200 clients. Every single one of those clients that not only lost the weight, but kept it off long term, they all had these 5 habits in common, every single one of them. And if there's one thing I know to be true, it's that success leaves clues. But before we get into those 5 habits, let's actually classify what is a successful dieter. To me, the person must have achieved these 3 things. First of all, they've lost the weight. Second of all, they've been able to maintain the weight, keep it off for the rest of their life. So if you just dieted, lost a whole heap of weight and put it back on, you didn't successfully diet. And then lastly, being able to maintain that weight long term without living an overly restrictive lifestyle. So if you've lost the weight and you've kept it off, but you're still eating nothing but chicken and broccoli, you're slamming yourself in the gym every day, you're scared to eat a piece of chocolate or have a glass of wine, or you won't go eat out at a restaurant because you're too worried that you might put on weight, you're still living an overly restrictive lifestyle, and I wouldn't really classify that as successful. To me, the successful dieter has lost the weight, they've been able to maintain it, and they can do it without restrictions. So let's get into these 5 habits. What are they? Habit number 1 is they have a powerful reason. They have a powerful reason for wanting to make change in their life. So if you're someone who just wants a hot girl summer, you want to look good in the bikini for the summer, or you're just purely wanting to do this for vanity reasons only to look good, that's not a very powerful reason. It's not really a deep enough reason for wanting change. You have to have a powerful reason. For me, I want to be healthy, fit, and strong when I'm 80. So that when I'm in the twilight years of my life, when I have grandchildren, I can run around after them. I don't have all these ailments to my health. I can still go enjoy life. Because what happens is most of us neglect our health our whole life. We spend our younger years grinding away to get ahead. But then because of that, we neglect our health. And then when we're 80, once we've retired, once we've got grandchildren, and we have all this spare time on our hands to be able to enjoy life, now we don't actually have the health to do it. And sure, I do want to look better, but if my only reason for doing this is I wanted to have a 6-pack, it's not a very powerful reason. So you have to find that powerful reason why. Why are you doing this? And if you're just doing it for vanity reasons, it's not going to stick. Number 2 is planning in advance. So there's been studies done on this. The number 1 predictor that someone wakes up in the morning and goes and exercises is they leave their clothes out. Like myself, you might have thought that it was going to bed early or getting a good night's sleep. The number 1 way to ensure that you go to the gym in the morning is by simply leaving your clothes out the night before. Now, what is that? That's planning in advance. So by planning in advance, I don't mean that you have to go meal prep your whole week in advance, like on Sunday or whatever you're going through and you're planning out what you're going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That stuff doesn't work. And none of my clients who are successful ever did that. But you need to have some kind of planning. So the night before you go to bed, actually have a think about, what am I going to have for breakfast? What am I going to have for lunch tomorrow? Then if you track your calories, you can put that in your calorie counter. Or you could simply just go and put that food aside in the cupboard. So let's say you're having some oats for breakfast. You could go weigh out 100 grams of oats, prep it in advance. So then all you have to do in the morning is just wake up and put it on the stove, put it in the oven, and it's ready to go. But just having some kind of planning there. Because what happens is you live a hectic life. Like you might be getting up, getting the kids ready for school, then you're getting ready for work. And in those moments where there's high stress, you're short on time, you're not thinking properly about eating healthy. You're just thinking of how can I survive? So when breakfast comes around, when lunch comes around, if there's been no thought beforehand about what you're going to do, you're just going to go with the first option that's right there in front of you. Versus shit's hitting the fan, work's stressful, things are going on all around you, bombs are blowing off. But the night before, you put aside what you're going to have for lunch. Now it's one less thought that you have to make. You've already planned in advance what you're going to have for lunch the next day. You don't need to think about it. It's all done. Number 3 is relentless focus. Most people are completely distracted. And I'm going to give you a visual example of this. So I've got a circle. Okay, the circle represents you and all your energy. And each individual line coming off that circle indicates 1 unit of focus. Now, let's say you have 10 units of focus in total, but 1 unit of focus you spend on TV. The next unit is on news and politics. Next unit of focus could be like hanging around people who don't really align with you long term. The next could be working on your health. The next could be your family, and so on and so forth, right? Everyone splits their focus on different things. The point is that I'm trying to make here is you only get 10 units of focus. You only get so much focus. So if your focus is split between 10 different things, how far do you think you can get with the one that you actually want to change? And I'll give you a visual of this so you can wrap your mind around it. So again, we've got the circle, but instead of only putting 1 unit of focus into your weight loss, into your health, you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of focus into your weight loss and your health. How much better results do you think you would get? And you do that by getting rid of all the crap that doesn't serve you. Hanging around with shit people, scrolling on social media all day, binging on Netflix, watching the news, getting involved in politics. All those things are draining your focus from what actually matters in your life. An example for me is I freaking love playing video games, right? But the thing is, there's 4 areas in my life that I care about. I care about my family, I care about my business, I care about my health, and I care about my spirituality. And if I start putting my focus into playing video games, one of those 4 areas suffers. And because those 4 areas are more important to me, guess what has to go? Video games. So a lot of getting to your goals is choosing what's most important to you and cutting out almost everything else. So you have to decide what's most important in my life. If watching news, politics, binging on Netflix is more important than your health and your weight loss, that's cool. Spend your focus there. But if your weight loss, your health, your family, whatever, they're the most important things to you, then all your focus needs to go into those areas and eliminate all the other noise in your life. Habit number 4 is short-term pain, long-term gain. So people that can do this have the ability to sacrifice in the short term because they know they'll get a reward for it in the long term. Basically, another way of saying this is delayed gratification. Perfect example of this is going to the gym, exercising. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Where most people take short-term gain or pleasure for long-term pain. Using the gym example or the exercise example. Not exercising. Feels good in the short term to lounge around and relax. Doesn't feel good in the long term. And this is the lens that I see through to determine if something is good in the short term and bad in the long term. So if something feels good in the short term, it's probably bad for you. And I'll give you some examples of this. Debt. Debt feels really good in the short term, right? You got that TV, you got that new car. Feels really good in the short term until that novelty wears off and now you realize you're in debt and you've got to pay this crap off. Eating junk feels really good in the short term, bad in the long term. Lounging around and not exercising feels really good in the short term, not so good in the long term. On the flip side, if something feels bad in the short term, it's probably going to be good for you in the long term. Going to the gym, eating healthy food when there's a junk alternative there, saving your money and not going and blowing it. These are all things that feel sucky in the short term, but they feel really good in the long term. So if you can just see through that lens of if it feels good in the short term, it's probably not good for me. And number 5 habit that all successful dieters have is they aim for consistency over perfection. Here's what a perfectionist looks like. They're a 10 out of 10, they're a 10 out of 10, and then they're a 0 out of 10, they're a 0 out of 10, they're a 0 out of 10, and they're a 10 out of 10. There's no in between. They're either a 10 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10. They're all or nothing. Someone who's consistent, they don't worry about trying to be a 10 out of 10. They just try and be a 6 or a 7 out of 10 every single day. Some days they might go a little bit lower, some days they might go a little bit higher, but they're aiming for consistency. This is what will get you results, and this is what will allow you to maintain your results. And the best way to think of this is to raise your floor, not your ceiling, okay? So what do I mean by this? So your ceiling is your best, okay? So your ceiling is what do you do on your absolute best day? Okay, this is your perfect day. Your floor is what you do on your absolute worst day. I'm telling you right here that your ceiling is already good enough. Your best is already good enough. And here's the mistake that most people do. Their best is already good enough, but they try and make their best better. They try and raise the ceiling. But their floor is all the way down here. So there's too much of a gap between their best and their worst. Whereas what will get you better results is if you don't worry about making your best better, you make your worst better. Because if you can decrease that gap between your best and your worst, that's consistency and that's where the results come from. So you don't need to make your best better. You do not need to raise your ceiling. It is already good enough. You need to make your floor higher so the gap between your best and your worst isn't as bad. So that day where you're a 0 out of 10, if you can take that to a 3 or a 4, that's honestly all you need. And the way you raise your floor is by committing to non-negotiables. For me, a non-negotiable is no matter what, I will do 15 minutes of physical activity every single day. Doesn't matter how tired I am, how stressed I am, how busy I am, I will commit to 15 minutes of physical activity a day. Now, if that's my absolute worst, that's pretty good. So you need to figure out what is your non-negotiable. Even on your worst day, what do you commit to 100%? And it can honestly be something as small as going for a 5-minute walk. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. The lower you can set the bar, the better, because the more likely it is that you'll actually do it. So those are the 5 habits that all successful dieters have. First of all, they have a powerful reason. They have a powerful reason why they're doing this. Number 2 is they plan in advance. Number 3 is they have a relentless focus and they eliminate all the garbage that doesn't serve them. Number 4 is short-term pain, long-term gain, so delayed gratification. And number 5, aiming for consistency over perfection. Now, obviously, there's many more habits that work for people as well. This is just based off my own observation. Personally, I could add another 10, 15 to the list, but these are really the 5 that I've seen that like every single person that I've worked with that's been successful, they all had these 5 things. And with the people I've worked with who have had all these habits, they didn't just have them straight away. These were something that they developed over time. So if you're like, I only do one of these things or I don't do any of them all, don't stress about it. These are something that you can work on. They're a skill. And like any skill, it gets better by just practicing it. Also, if you've found any habits that have worked really well for you, feel free to comment below. I'd love to know what worked for you. And if you found value out of this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Peace.